This is Mainstreet with Gary Allen. Now, here's Gary.
And good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whenever you're watching this particular program. Gary Allen with you, the host of Mainstreet, as we are every week. We have a great show for you today. But since we talked last, I hope things have been great. We had a great response to the show last week with Dale Jones and his wife, Jody White. I kept calling her West. I don't know why, but nevertheless, we had great response to it. And this afternoon, we're going to be talking about this evening, whenever you watch this program, with my very dear friend, Mr. Dave Lamont, and we're going to talk sports. We're going to jump around a lot. We're going to have some fun. So without further ado, would you please bring on Mr. Oriole himself, Mr. Dave Lamont.
Good, everything. Yeah, apologize for the bizarro lighting, but I'm situated by a window on a gray day. So that's the way it's going to go.
It's rainy and cloudy and cold here. I mean, it's not much really better off. Jeff could not be with us today, but he will be back with us the next time. The three of us, before the Super Bowl happened, we all picked the Philadelphia Eagles. One of the worst Super Bowls I've ever watched, Dave.
Yeah, I was tuned out fourth quarter. Actually, I was over at my in-laws, and I walked over a couple of minutes. We live very close to them, to feed our stray cat. So that shows you where I was in the fourth quarter on that game. It happens every once in a while. You have duds. We've had them in our own backyard. San Diego and the 49ers, I remember, the Steve Young game.
Yep.
It does happen. We've had some brilliant ones that have gone down to the last few minutes with great suspense, and we've had those that are all points in between. So it happens. I always was a little suspect of Kansas City on offense all year, but I really felt they were doing this, other than Mahomes and maybe Kelsey, with replacement parts, particularly in the receiving core. Now, Xavier Worthy may end up being a great player for them someday, and he's getting better. But, they probably put too much on him for a first-year player. Everybody else was a guy like, oh, wait, DeAndre Hopkins is now with the Chiefs? That guy is now – wait, when did he sign with them? They were really trying to stitch together something. And listen, it almost worked. They got right to the last game. So it's a tribute, I think, to their staff and to the guys who were there. But Philadelphia was a better team 100% of the time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that defensive line, they only rushed 4. I don't remember any real blitzes per se. There might have been a few, but it was the 4 guys up front just all decided, as the Rams used to say back in the day when Merlin Olsen and the guys played there, our job is to meet at the quarterback. And that's exactly what they did. They met at the quarterback.
What we saw, Gary, was the Super Bowl where Kansas City lost to Tampa.
Yeah.
Except that game, they were really beat up on the offensive line. This game, they were just overwhelmed on the offensive line. I think they had one injury that they had to account for, but nevertheless, Mahomes never really had any kind of a chance. And, any quarterback, no matter how good you are, is going to be disrupted with that kind of pressure. Everything goes off. They couldn't throw the ball deep because there was no time to throw the ball deep. And who are you going to throw the ball deep to? Worthy's one of the fastest people in the NFL, but they had him covered. So really, Philadelphia literally had every answer for everything Kansas City could do. And it wasn't even a day for Saquon Barkley to get it done. It was a big day for Jalen Hurts, who was the deserved MVP. But, it was just Kansas City's defense was hamstrung by Kansas City's offense. Yep. And that's just the recipe for disaster. That felt more like, some week 5 game that you turn on for 10 minutes and you turn off. And unfortunately, this was our last shot for a while.
Yeah, well, and I'll be perfectly honest with you. I have not missed it at all. I'm back into the NBA as I usually get this time of the year, or a little bit before then, around Christmas time. And so I haven't really missed it. But yeah, I had this feeling like you and Jeff that Philadelphia was a little bit better in so many different areas. And I thought, Kansas City has been, like you said, they've been coming up with these wins at the last minute. They've been coming up with a couple of point victory here, a couple of point victory there. They won some nice games this year, but I felt as though maybe they weren't up to the task as they have been in the previous year. So, and 100%. They weren't.
100%. And actually, their offense has been backsliding. Even last year, their defense won that Super Bowl for them. Their defense had a terrific performance. This year, their defense, as I said, was hurt by some of the mistakes the offense made. Some of those were short field touchdowns, but Philly was also just really good.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because the first month of the season, Nick Sirianni's name was appearing among coaches who were going to be fired.
Yes.
There was talking that he was in real trouble, that he was having communication issues with his locker room, and obviously nothing can fix you any faster than getting a hot streak going and going on to the championship. So all of a sudden he's the toast of the town now instead of somebody who's going to be, on an Amtrak out of there. So
Yeah. They even
weird
mentioned
how
it
that turns
yesterday.
that around.
Yeah, they even mentioned on the Phillies-Orioles game yesterday how popular he was. Instead of arguing with the crowd, now the crowd loves him,
Yeah.
So it's like, that's Philly. That's Philly.
That's anywhere else. I'll be honest, Gary. I think that would have been the same if it had been in another city. Philly is a tough town, as you know, and as I know.
Yeah.
But they love a winner and they love their Eagles, and they have every right to be. And I'm with you about football. I know there's other football coming.
Yeah.
In the spring and summer, but I just don't tune in. I have, maybe it's an old guy thing. Maybe it's just the fact that I like my seasons, my sports to be divided. And with hockey and with basketball running so long into the summer, with issues sometimes in buildings with hockey, you've got trouble with getting ice to stay, solid, or NBA problems with air conditioning every once in a while because you're playing basketball games indoors in the summer now.
Yeah.
I like my seasons, so I'm ready.
Yeah.
Starting to look at baseball a little bit, ready for the NBA. They're back from their break. The NHL's back from its break. So yeah, I'm ready to ride those to their conclusion.
And what a break the NHL have. I got to tell you, I didn't watch 1 minute of the Four Nations. I didn't, because I'm not a hockey fan. I don't understand the game.
How can you
You're
not
gonna have to
understand the game? Put the puck in the net, Gary. I just explained hockey to you.
Okay. Thank you, dear. But I mean, you're going to have to sit down with your little baby, with your brother here, and explain it to me. The orange line from the blue line to the green line.
Oh,
I
stop.
don't know.
There's no
I don't know.
green line. There's
Well,
no
you know what I
orange
mean.
line. There's offsides, and the center line is the center.
Yeah.
That's where you drop the puck at the beginning of the game.
Everybody that I've talked to who loves the NHL or who even likes the NHL, they went, we got to do this more often. Because I'll be honest with you, the NBA All-Star game is a joke. That weekend to me, is a joke. It really is. Major League Baseball, okay, yeah, they kind of try a little bit. Forget the NFL All-Star
They don't
game.
even have a game anymore. I mean, they because of the risk of injury to its players, they just decided, as the game had decreased over the last 20 years, why are we even bothering to do this? The problem now is the public outcry is forcing the hand of these leagues to do something different all the time. So the NBA has kept a lot of their formula, but then they said, okay, fine, let's try this idea. The problem is I think the NBA is suffering from a media right now that's just decided that they don't like the NBA for whatever reason. Now, they've had a weird year. The trading deadline, the whole Luka Doncic thing really pissed people off.
We're going to get into that.
Even people who don't follow the sport were angry about all that. And all it is, if you want to really strip it down, it was just a trade, but yet it really riled people up. I don't know what the NBA, I really think the NBA was guilty before they were ever even on trial with this All-Star weekend. And are they going to have to do things differently? Yeah. What hockey did was wildly successful. And can the NBA do something similar to that, a U.S. versus the world kind of game? But are you still going to be able to get guys to play hard? They spread out. The NHL took a huge risk by taking as much time out of their season as they did. Great for the guys who aren't playing, who weren't playing in the Four Nations.
Yeah.
They get a lot of rest and a lot of chance to heal up from any injuries that they may accumulate over the year.
Yeah.
I don't know if the NBA can do that or wants to do that, or if their television partners would be okay with it. They've got, and especially with a new deal starting next year with NBC. Now, maybe they'll be in discussions with their broadcast partners about, okay, what can we do? TNT won't be carrying the All-Star weekend anymore. It'll fall in, I guess, in NBC's lap. Can they come up with something? I think the skills in the slam dunk probably need to go. I'm just not sure what else you can do. Baseball has had some success with the home run derby.
Yeah.
And the All-Star game is actually fun because you do get these unique matchups. You are getting guys, I think, who are trying in the All-Star game. I still think there's some pride there. It's the most interesting All-Star game by far. But hockey landed on something here,
Yeah.
and I don't think football is. I can't imagine them going back to a game. Not going to
I, I
happen.
I think they just cancel the whole damn thing altogether.
Well, if they could
Cancel it.
do something for fans, I think if they can do something that's interactive and put it on a neutral time and get a bunch of guys to come down and get some alumni to come down and find ways to do that, then I would be in favor of that. I don't think you
Yeah.
want to completely lose touch with your fan base because there are opportunities, I guess, at that weekend for that to happen. So
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. You got to pay these people back for all they do for you.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if the NBA could probably, with the game as international as it is now, put up a pretty good world team against the USA. But
Yeah.
would it have the same passion? And let's face it, the NHL got a big break on election day. Having the anti-Canadian sentiment coming out of Washington
Oh yeah.
really was an unintended positive consequence for the NHL. I'm sure this has come up 1,000 times already. And they benefited from that greatly by the fact that the intensity level of the games, both in Canada and in Boston, were way off the charts for exhibitions.
Oh
So
yeah.
they got lucky. They really did. There's no way they planned that when they thought about this whole thing. There was no way to see that coming.
No.
And so will that happen again next year? Will it be quite as intense? I
Probably
don't
not.
know. It's hard to imagine them getting that wired up again.
But can they do that again? I mean, can they
Yeah,
take that
sure.
much time off?
Well, let's see what their schedule looks like next year. I don't see how they just go, well, that was fun. We're not going to do it again. And people are going to go, what? You're going to go back to 13 to 11 NHL All-Star games where nobody tries to hit, nobody
Yeah.
tries to play. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're married to this format now.
I mean, the NBA took what, a week off too, I believe, did
They
they
take
not?
they increased, I think, their time a couple of more days than normal.
Yeah, because I
These are grueling schedules these teams have. 80 something odd games for both, all the travel, even if it's first class travel, and it is first class travel. I don't feel sorry for them, but the practices, the skate arounds, the day of the games, it can wear on
yeah,
anybody.
and look at for instance with Boston, my guys, Porzingis. How often has he been out this year
Yeah,
with injuries? I mean, it really is. And then of course we're going to get into it a little bit later on about Wembanyama and Embiid getting there. One thing that bugs me that really bugs me, and you know this oh too well. Why are the Yankees going to allow these clowns to grow beards? There's enough guys with beards. It's almost like looking at an Amish wedding when you watch a Major League Baseball game anymore.
hmm
Or
I
not
could
an
care
Amish
less.
wedding, but
Could
a but
care
a
less. Don't
uh,
First off, I don't care about anything the Yankees do.
yeah.
Um,
Well, yeah.
that's one. Two, um, to me, it just doesn't matter. Do I like? I don't think that any Yankee fan should give a crap. I think the only thing they should care about is what happens on the field. I don't know if you should care what your guys look like. I
Yeah.
understand that there used to be the day when guys were so-called clean cut, and there were rules about that, and then you had the A's with mustaches in the '70s, which was scandalous. And I
Yeah.
realize now that long beards, although I think that's slowly fading, but maybe it isn't. Long beards are a fashion.
Yeah.
I don't particularly care for them. I think they look a little silly, but
Yep.
it's a style. Long hair has been around since the '60s for men.
The
Uh,
long hair I don't mind, but
yeah,
it's like the beards have gotten I mean, like I said, it's like going to a Hasidic wedding, I mean, somewhere along the line, it's like, hey, booby, I mean, come on, can you control what you look like here with this? I mean, you got the guy for the Phillies. My God, it's like he throws water on himself to keep it all wet all the time. He's a
yeah.
good outfielder, but yeah,
All that matters, and that should be all that matters is can this guy play or not?
yeah,
And I think we get hung up on appearance sometimes too much. Players with hair in football with long hair, other helmets or different hairstyles than what we're used to. To me,
right.
it's the person that matters. But I understand it. It's a break with tradition. I mean, and it's the Yankees. I think if the Kansas City Royals had announced they were getting rid of their no beard policy, people would have gone, "You had a no beard policy?" But it's the Yankees, and they have to make a big deal out of every freaking thing they do is a big deal.
Yes, we definitely can tell the animosity coming from young David on the
Well, because it's
Yankees
like
being
rooting for the establishment. I don't want to do that. I don't
yeah.
want to root for the Cowboys. I don't want to root for the Yankees.
Oh,
I just, I'm not from New York. Now, if I was from New York, I would probably actually, if I was from New York, I'd probably be a Mets fan. Uh,
Yeah.
because they're a little bit less establishment, but that's just not my nature as a human being to be always
Mhm.
pro-establishment. So I guess teams like that, and the Lakers have fallen into that category too. The teams that get
Ooh.
too much publicity, like the Cowboys, especially at least the Yankees will put together a competent product on the field most of the time. Last year they had a very good team. We can't deny that. But for the amount of hype, the Cowboys are probably the worst offenders. Not that
Ugh.
they do the offending, but it's the media and all the buildup. That's the stuff that drives me nuts. And they have done nothing since the mid '90s, and yet they're covered as if they were the Chiefs or they were the Eagles or the successful teams of the day. It's like it's funny you even bring it up because the Yankees up because it's just an example of them creating news where there really isn't them sending out a press release announcing to the world that people don't have to shave every day. Really?
Yeah.
That to me is speaks of some arrogance on their part.
Dave Lamont, Gary Allen with you here on Main Street as we go through the wonderful world of sports. By the way, Dave, I was thinking of a name for our sports show that we're going to eventually do, and I know it's live on the air. So here we go.
Oh, I
I
can't
thought,
wait because I don't know these in advance, so this is going to be fun.
no, it's only one. I mean, I got a
Oh,
whole host of them that we're going to talk about off the air, but I just thought of this a little while ago. Sports nuts.
I think that might be out there. I was thinking during the Christmas holidays, we three wise men.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that might work too.
Maybe people who watch the show they'll tune in and give us an idea for me, you, and
Shut the
Jeff.
hell up would be another one.
Yeah,
Um,
that wouldn't be a bad one.
People who are watching that
Uh,
are saying that too. But yeah, I don't know. That three wise men or we're right, you're wrong, or I'm
yeah,
right, you're wrong, stuff like that. A lot of the good names were taken
yeah,
early when sports talk became a thing.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's a thought. It's
It- Speaking of the Dallas Cowboys, and I was actually going to go to FSU, but now that we're talking about the
I don't even
Cowboys,
know what to talk about FSU, so you've got me there. See, this is what I
um,
like. I like it when you surprise me.
okay, there's a big question mark in spite of the NIL signings and the portal signings that FSU has had with Norvell. If he's really getting the top, the 4 and
Yeah,
5
yeah, yeah,
star
yeah.
guys, and they're wondering with his schedule. And by the way, the schedule is kind of brutal: Alabama, Miami, Clemson.
Okay, that's bad.
Who else do they got? They got a couple other
Well,
teams
they'll
on here
have the
too.
usual conference
Yeah,
people. They'll have Florida,
yeah,
who is supposed to be good.
yeah,
Um, Florida seemingly has had some success. A lot of it, it's hard. Sometimes you need to find two or three guys who can turn your fortunes around in your recruiting. Maybe you don't even know who they are yet. And there might be
yeah,
somebody in that recruiting class who's going to end up being a star for you who doesn't have 5 stars attached to his name. Not everybody is Ohio State, and able to get the talent all the time. I mean, Florida State, they really only had one good year under Norvell, and that was when they had a terrific quarterback in Jordan Travis. Since then, before then, you could always say, hey, he walked into a tough situation.
yep.
But just that one year, and then of course it blew up in a very unfortunate fashion, and then disaster. I mean, one of the worst offenses in all college football last year, and that's
Yeah.
including
Oh God, yeah.
everybody.
But we
So
can say the same thing about our Canes too. I mean, until Cam came along, we were
very mediocre. You're a 7-win team with an almost guaranteed bowl game loss, and you get a once a rented quarterback who was, for 1 year as good as anybody's ever played the position, including guys
Mhm.
who won Heisman's like Vinny and Gino, and guys who ended up being successful NFL quarterbacks like Jim Kelly and Kozar. But
Yeah.
now you have in Carson Beck a guy who comes in hurt, and I really am going to have to be sold on this one just because can he perform at the same level before he got hurt that he did at Georgia, and
Yeah.
what happens after he leaves? Is this going to now be a treadmill of 1 year QB things? Because that's really, really risky because there's going to be the year where that guy doesn't work out or he gets hurt. And if you're not prepared, well, you
Mhm.
kind of saw what happened in the bowl game in the second half.
Yep.
The backup comes in, which
Mhm.
apparently was planned all along, which nobody knew, and didn't perform well. And
By the way, the bull crap from the NFL draft that teams have already taken Cam off the board because he didn't play the second half. That's a lot of bull.
is that really a true story?
It's a true story. I had
No.
somebody at ESPN confirm it for me, and he said, "Yeah." And he said,
No,
said the teams that need quarterbacks the most are the ones that are taking them off the board, and
no,
what
I don't
fools they are.
believe that. I don't believe that. I don't think anybody who needs a quarterback would take him off the board. Teams that don't need a quarterback won't have him on the board. But
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
if that's the case, I just think you're doing a poor job.
well, it's not
That
it's
to
not the
me was
upper teams. It's
mismanaged.
not the upper teams that need
I
a quarterback.
understand
It's
that. I
some of the down.
understand. It's the poor team, so they're not in a position to take anybody off the board who shows any kind of talent. So
Yeah,
I will dispute that. I just that's my worry for Miami, that these the wheel's going to spin one day, and it's going to not spin on anybody who's that good, and that person's going to bomb out, and you're going to have a bad year,
yeah,
or get hurt. And I mean, what if Ward happened to get hurt? It's a what if, and it never happened. But if he
no,
gets
thank
hurt in
God.
Game 5, you don't have any run at the ACC, even though you ended up not making it. So every year we hear the same speech that they're recruiting well, and this is going to be they're building the depth. We have a new defensive coordinator. Okay, all that is great. This is we're coming up on March 1st, so I'm willing to wait until August and September to see evidence as opposed to words, and that drives me nuts about all of this stuff, Gary. It's just talk until we actually do something.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's. I go back a long ways. Super Bowl III. When my brother found out how much I lost betting on the Colts, he said, "Are you out of your mind?" He said, "Are you crazy?" He said, "The only other person around here was Tom Maddie. He bought a brand new home. Now he's got to figure out how he's going to pay for it." He said, "Never bet on football. You never know what's going to happen." He said, "They had us from the word go, and there was nothing we could do to stop them." And that was the end of that. And I learned my lesson there. I still think I'm paying my dad, and he's been dead since 99, interest on the loan that he gave me to help pay off that the thing. Let's go over to the NBA again.
Yeah, we have a few things to discuss there. So shoot.
Yeah. Wembama. I'm not pronouncing it right. I'm not
Victor Wembanyama.
Wembanyama.
You just call
Yeah.
him Wemby. Make it easy on yourself.
Wemby. The blood clot. I really admire San Antonio for saying, okay, we're shutting this guy down.
You have
He's
to.
the future. Yeah, he's the future. We're not going to play with him. We're not going to see how it is in 2 weeks or 3 weeks if it dissolves or whatever.
You have to.
We're shutting him down.
I had a blood clot in my leg about 7 or 8 years ago, and I was treated and all that, and I'm fine. I haven't had a recurrence since, but I was on blood thinners for quite a while. One of the things they tell you to do, at least for a week or two, is no physical activity. Like, you really have to be careful until they're confident that has shrunk. And that a blood clot is treated with great urgency at an ER.
What brings them on? I don't know.
I'm not know. My case, allegedly, they first thought it's a long story, but they first thought it was something I at the same time, I kicked the door open because I had broken wrists and I was trying to open a door, and I kicked it to get it to open.
Man.
And they thought it might have been that. Then they thought maybe it was an hereditary issue, but I'm a genetic wild card because I'm adopted.
Like me.
The point is, when I realized that there was something wrong, and the urgent care people sent me over to the ER diagnosed that in about 2.5 seconds. And I swear to you, 2 nurses rappelled out of the roof with needles and hit me with shots around my navel immediately.
Yeah.
And then I spent the night in the hospital and was awakened at 6 o'clock by the same people, or at least 2 other nurses who came down from the ceiling with the same treatment. And then I was out the next day, and I haven't had a problem since. So as soon as I heard that, now obviously that's me. I am not a young man. I am not an elite athlete like Wembanyama is. But it sucks for the NBA. This is a league that needs good publicity. He provides good publicity. He's a very good player, and he's getting better all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And San Antonio was not going to be a factor this year. So it's not like, oh, crap, there go their championship hopes and dreams for 2025. That wasn't happening.
No.
The only thing is now you just have to hope this is not going to be a recurring issue, because if it does, I should say, and they say it's not like Chris Bosh's situation, which caused him to retire.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing that's positive about that. They believe he should be able to play next season, and I'm sure that group will be extremely careful with him. moving forward.
Now, here's the other part of this question you brought up. How in the name of God did you end up with 2 sprained wrists?
No, they were broken.
Broken. What did you do?
I fell at a gym. I got some bad advice on a workout and fell and hard and cracked them both.
Okay, remind me next time we do anything together to keep my distance a little bit. Philadelphia 76ers, they need to shut Embiid down. He's going to need another operation. They
Mhm.
need to get him in shape,
Mm-hmm.
but they won't shut him down.
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
not that you talk about a team that's got, I mean, I think the Heat's got some bad karma going around it, but nothing like the 76ers. Every time it seems like they finally got it together, something like this happens, and it seems to always center around him.
yeah,
I don't know what the people in Philly are saying about it. I don't know how if he is a popular athlete or a hated athlete or somewhere in between, but it's sad to see, and you feel badly for him in a way because I'm sure, obviously he would want to be in a much better situation health-wise, but he's just been fragile from the start. And it's kind of like Anthony Davis in a way. You have extremely talented, successful big guys, but they just cannot stay healthy. And you mentioned Porzingis is another big guy who can't stay healthy.
yeah.
Is it the demands of the schedule? Is it the demands of the practice? What is it? Or I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I don't have the background to offer a real answer on it. But yeah, it's a terrible situation for Embiid and for Philly, and again for the NBA. Here's a guy who's a Team USA guy, who's
Yeah.
good enough to represent the country, but can't represent his professional team.
Yeah. Dave Lamont, Gary Allen with you here on Main Street. Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for the Celtics having Horford and what's it, Crockett, I think is it Crockett? The
Well, I
other
mean, I
back.
don't weep for the Celtics. They're in good
No,
shape.
no,
They're
no,
in
no.
very,
They're
very
they're,
good shape.
they're probably going to win it all again, unless
Mm,
Cleveland. Now they're going to
Cleveland
play each other tonight or tomorrow night.
Cleveland
Uh,
needs to be watched if you're looking for an upset team. From not even an upset, really, if Cleveland wins. And in the West, I mean,
who's
Denver
going to
is
beat him?
always dangerous. Oklahoma City.
Um, maybe if they can keep it together and they can play consistent ball. But I've watched the Celtics now since the All-Star break, since they came back. Granted, it was against the Knicks and
Yeah, the Knicks have
whom
gone
else?
weird. I'm gonna look the standings up here to double check, but
Boston's in second place, but they're
yeah.
they're probably favored or even over
Well, I mean,
Cleveland.
there's six games out of first. And in the West, yeah, OKC actually is only a half game out for best record. Memphis is surprisingly good. I still think
Yeah,
Denver is dangerous. Um, I don't, even though the Lakers have a winning record, I don't know. Maybe they'll have it all gelled together with the trade and all that by the time the playoffs come around. Luca carried Dallas to the finals last year, and here at least he has a LeBron, is somebody that's going to be pretty helpful. So you think.
yeah.
So, but I still think Oklahoma City is, if they can handle the spotlight. I mean, but SGA is obviously a top 5 player in this league right now, and I would be shocked. I mean, surprisingly, Dallas, despite what's happened, has a winning record.
Yeah.
They're in the play-in in the Western Conference, as are the Heat. Oddly enough, they're both in eighth
Yeah.
place, excuse me. But I don't know whose immediate future I'd rather have, Dallas's or Miami's.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm not down there, so you can tell me better than anybody. The Heat have got to be happy that Jimmy Butthead is gone.
Are they? They're 1-5 since he left.
But I
Golden
think
State is
for the
5-1
team,
since he arrived. Yes,
uh,
I think you're
atmosphere.
right because you read some of the quotes, Gary. I'm sure you did, of some of the guys when all this was going on, and they were trying to be careful about what they said. But there's no way you want to work with somebody, and that's any job, who doesn't want to be there
Yeah.
and who's going to say things that are negative. And work, obviously, every work environment is different, whether it's an office or a school or a factory or anywhere, a tech company. It doesn't matter. You need people who are somewhat happy to be there,
Yes.
and he was an anchor. He was dragging this team down. But on the court, they're losing without him. And
Yeah.
the problem is nobody, even though Bam is having a pretty nice year and Tyler Hero's having the best year of his career, that
Yeah.
is not enough. They blew a double-digit lead in Milwaukee yesterday. But we're taping this the day before they've had this happen several times. Yeah, the 1 year with Jimmy Butler, they got out of the play and they got all the way to the finals, but that's not going to happen this year. It's
No.
not.
No.
And so this is the team that's in that awkward spot of being not great and not so terrible that they can't go, okay, we understand what's happening here. We're going to build through the lottery. That's not the Miami Heat Pat Riley way.
No.
And so right now they're in an unenviable position.
Does Tyler Hero become the focal point of building around with
I don't know if
Bam?
he's that good. That's a great question. I don't know if he's that good. I think you put the two of them together, yes. But you have to kind of look, has Pat Riley hurt himself in the Butler thing, or did he come out looking okay? Did he come out as the strong leader that a lot of people think he is? What about the perception of him among the NBA players? Eric Spoelstra draws rave reviews as a coach. I think Mickey Arison would be a great owner to play for because he's basically hands off unless he's needed, and he was needed in this situation, and he has a right. When your star player is angry, Arison did get involved. There was a very revealing article in The Athletic about the Riley Butler meeting that went very badly, where Riley apparently tried to bring up either his father or Butler's father. I forget which now, and there were like tears, and there was not. It just didn't set well with Butler, Riley's behavior in the meeting.
Yeah.
I don't know if the days of Pat just wowing people anymore, like he did with LeBron.
Probably not. Probably not.
Yeah, that's a great question, Gary. As far as building for the future, I don't know. They're not going to draft high enough to get.
And then they got that young man out of Arizona, right? He did very well last year. I don't know what he's doing this year.
It's just he's dipped.
Yeah.
It's an awkward time for this team. It really is. And they're good enough to beat the crap teams. They're not good enough to beat the elite teams consistently. And every once in a while, they have a performance where you go, okay, this is the one, baby. And then they'll blow a double-digit lead, on the road to somebody who's average, and you think, oops, never mind, we got our hopes up for nothing. So it's an interesting team to root for right now.
Question that has been circulating around the NBA now for a very long time. By the way, how's your son doing up in there with the Wizards?
Fine. He actually just got a mini promotion as someone left the organization to go to the WNBA. How about that? And so we'll see how that pans out.
Best to him, man. He comes from the best two people I can think of on the earth. And I'll repeat that till hell freezes over. Well, you're half of that anyway. Yeah. Your other half, which, 20%. She's not around, right? I mean, your wife's not around right now.
No,
right?
I'm sitting in her chair though. So.
Oh, well, there you go. Okay, here's the $1 million Eskimo in the room. Does Curry and LeBron ever come together on one team for a season?
Oh, geez. I can't see Curry leaving Golden State,
no.
and I can't see LeBron leaving LA. So I would say no. Okay. And at this point, what does that do? Curry's 35, LeBron's 40. They're both effective, but not as effective as they used to be as consistently.
No.
I find Curry immensely entertaining. I love it when he just gets on one of these crazy rolls where he can literally pull up from anywhere in the building and make shots. I'm a Curry fan. LeBron, I think, has just worn everybody out. No. If they do, they do. But you imagine the contract headaches that would cause for a team.
Yeah.
The salary cap tilt to have both those guys, because they're not going to do it for free. They're not going to do it for a percentage of ticket sales. They're obviously going to get extremely well compensated. I couldn't even imagine how the contracts would line up for that.
Yeah, I mean, it would be crazy. Before the trade was made, and my cat has decided she's joining us. Before the trade was made, Mavericks part-time owner or partial owner now, said, "Don't make the trade. Do not make that trade."
And I thought he was ambushed by it. Maybe I read that wrong, but
Well, yeah, he may have been, but I know that he made his voice loud and clear after the fact to the
Mhm.
press that I told him not to do this. This is ludicrous. But at the same time, look at Luca last year against Boston in the playoffs. Okay, because you and I talked about it numerous times. There were times when he was hotter than
Mhm.
anything you could possibly think of, hitting everything, making plays, making great. He wasn't consistent though. It was like maybe two out of the games that they played.
Well,
Dallas just couldn't keep up with Boston. When Boston puts it in gear, it's in gear, and you know that. So Luca, and he's never in shape, by the way. That's another
well,
thing.
that's the easy way. I mean, although my son did say it's pretty hilarious to him that the two of the three best players in the NBA are fat white guys. Um, but the Luca thing when that came out when they traded him, they immediately started with, well, he doesn't play defense and he's out of shape. Yeah, I guess that's how you got to the freaking NBA Finals.
Yeah,
So I'm not as worried about that as I think that was just somebody trying to throw up some kind of a wall of protection to go. Oh, well, when the people down there are still mad. They've had to throw people out of the arenas for yelling chants.
yeah,
If Mark Cuban were alive, this would have never happened. But this is what happens when you sell your control of the organization. He only has, I believe, 30% of the team,
yeah.
and it's kind of a shame. I always thought he was a dynamic owner and good for basketball
He
because
was a good ambassador for basketball. He said what
absolutely,
was on his mind.
and people like that. And
Yeah,
and now I don't think he has the cachet as an owner that he used to, and I think that hurts the league. I mean, when he would battle with David Stern, I think it was great for the NBA, and I think they both knew it. And
yeah,
they both embraced their battles and they both learned from each other. And I think in a secret way they admired each other. But that Mark Cuban is long gone now,
yeah,
and he made a business deal. And listen, you have to respect his business knowledge. Look what he's done. So I can't say he's an idiot for doing this, but maybe this was an unintended consequence, this trade, because that franchise, even though again they're over 500, which blows me away that they still are,
yeah,
uh, it certainly has helped the Lakers. And look what's happened to them. Davis gets hurt. Their backup big man, Daniel Gafford, who they got from Washington, ironically, a year ago. Gafford ends up in a situation where he goes from a team that's tanking to a team that's trying to win. And he gets this opportunity he didn't have in Washington. And what happens? He's now out for
right.
this year and he doesn't play with Luca anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
It's they've had horrific luck. I wouldn't want to be Jason Kidd in a million years, but somehow they're still on the cusp of the play-in.
Just out of curiosity, because you brought up your son, and of course I brought him up earlier. When he's going up against Boston, Cleveland, some of the superior teams in the NBA, with as bad as Washington is, and even
Mhm.
Tony Kornheiser, who is a major Wizards fan, although I remember him, and so do you as a kid, when they were the Bullets.
Yeah, sure.
And I remember, I got to tell you something, because I love Hubie Brown, and I'm sorry he's retired, but
Well,
God bless him. He
91
was
for
the
God's
best,
sakes. Yeah.
one of the grand gentlemen of all time, and I mean, really great. But he once said that he said when you played up against Wes Unseld, you were sore for 2 months afterwards.
Yeah.
That he was a bull in a china factory, and he let you know it.
Oh, a 6'7" center couldn't play now, but he was 6'7", but wide and extremely
Yeah,
strong. And it was a little bit of a more ground bound era than now.
yeah,
The league was becoming much more athletic, but West was not a guy who was going to dazzle you with slam dunks or great highlights. He was just a great rebounder, great passer, a reliable scorer. Nothing, but yeah, he was a wall. There were guys back then who were like that. It's a different game.
yep,
I even somebody posted highlights of like the 1969 All Star game somewhere,
yeah,
and I was surprised, even though I recognized all the players that were in it, and obviously there were Hall of Famers everywhere, but it was a little bit more ground bound. It
yep,
was a little bit different than it is now. Now, maybe now I think one of the things that's killing the league a little bit is the over reliance on the 3-point shot, where now
oh
you're
god, yeah,
seeing games, sometimes I'll look at a box score randomly, Gary, and I'll see over 70 3-pointers shot.
Or I saw a game with Boston over 100.
Well, that's what they do, and they're one of the most prolific 3-point shooting teams, and that's how they play, and it works. Listen,
Yeah.
we're not the two smartest guys in the world, but we know three's more than two.
Yep.
And their attitude is we're just going to keep going, and we're eventually going to start making them. And even if we shoot 35%, that's probably going to be enough. It's like the volume dealers, like the guys who sell you car volume, volume, volume. We got all the cars in the world, volume, volume, volume. Well, that's what it seems like the Celtics try to do, is just overwhelm you with volume. And it's hell, they've got the rings to prove it. So I would love to see it go back. I just don't know, who's going to look. You mentioned Wembanyama right from the start. He's a 7'5" guy who's a very good 3-point shooter, and they can post him too.
Yeah.
And they do, but at the same time, and I've seen him play in person once last year, and then I saw him on TV a couple times this year, and I happened to be watching a Wizards game, and he was lighting them up from three, lighting them up. He had 45, I think it was, and had at least 5 or 6 3-pointers.
But I'm with you. I miss the days when they worked it in the paint. They made their cuts. They got the extra pass going, and the 2-point shot was a 2-point shot. It wasn't a 3-pointer. But I miss those days of working it in the paint and playing the basketball that we grew up watching back in the day. I miss that. Now the Celtics can do that from time to time. So can Cleveland. So could the Lakers. All of them can when they want to, when things aren't going so well, just to keep things interesting.
Yeah.
But I miss those old days. I really do.
Well, I think the shooting percentages were worse. Although they're starting to. I don't know if they're better. They are better now. The players are better players. They're better athletes. There may not be. I think what they lack is some of the fundamentals of the game. I think that's an easy thing to pick on, because you wonder about the level of coaching they're getting when they're younger, and again, not staying in college for 4 years. I think some guys, not everybody. Now, Wembanyama, well, he was playing already, but didn't go to college in the United States. But guys like Wembanyama and Luka were polished products. I mean, Luka was a pro in his teens, so some of these guys were more polished than some of these others. But the fact that it's a one and done world in college, and again, you're not going back. There's nobody going to make, no court is going to say, you know what, screw that. Everybody's got to go to school for 4 years. That's not happening anymore. So you have people taking advantage of the system, some of whom are ready, some of whom are not. And they have to learn on the job. And either and it's a competitive environment. It's a cold-hearted environment. Some of them fail, some of them don't. And, that's the cycle we're in, and that's never going to change.
Yeah. I mean, and thank God in the NFL, you've got to be 3 years in college ball before you can come out for the draft, because if not, you got men playing against boys.
Well, that is the problem. Yeah, you can't do that.
I mean, there are a few guys that play college ball that are men already when they've entered their freshman year. They're that good.
Yeah, you know where they are? They're at BYU.
Yeah.
And Utah, places where these guys sometimes take their 2-year missions at 18 years old and come back in their early 20s, and then they start their football career. But that's a safety thing, and I hope they never change that. I think they understand. But look at baseball. I mean, you've got baseball, the same thing. It's just guys will get drafted out of high school depending on where they're slotted in the draft, and if the bonus is right, they'll walk out of college before they even walk in. I mean, Alex Rodriguez was supposedly this close to walking into a University of Miami classroom, and if he would have played there. He would have had to, but his contract offer came in. He's like, "Oh, how much?" Boop, 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 and he could just walk backwards and go sign a deal. It's baseball's the same, except the baseball, you just don't go right in from being 18 to the majors.
No.
In the NBA, frequently you do. Now the G League expanding is going to help develop some of these guys, but baseball it's a tougher road.
Yeah, it really is. When, as I ask you the question, when your son has to go up against Boston,
yeah, we never got
Cleveland,
to that.
yeah, what must go through his mind leading up to that game or watching the warm-ups? It must be like, I can go home now.
Well, I mean, you prepare any way you can. You do the best you can. I mean, upsets can happen. Yeah, they've taken some pretty rough losses. I think, and I feel badly for the coach and for the people who put the effort in and
Yeah.
realize that there's almost no chance of a victory unless something catastrophic happened to the other team. But you have to be a professional about it. You
Yeah.
still have to prepare your game plan. You still have to go through your video, which is his job primarily, and act like you've got a shot, even though deep down, yeah, I know he knows that their games are not going to win. But you play them, and it's opportunity for guys, especially a team. Although the funny thing is, they got older at the trade deadline, strangely enough. But
Really?
there are yeah, they made some contract deals. They got Chris Middleton from Milwaukee, and they got Marcus Smart.
Oh,
And
yes.
and it's kind of funny that that's not really obviously those guys are not their future. Neither is Malcolm Brogdon,
No.
who's a
Oh,
veteran guard, but he's around. And actually, I like watching him play because it's like watching a grown up play with a bunch of kids. Oh, thank God, Dad showed up at the playground because these kids are about to jump off the swing or
but
something
but
and hurt
but you
themselves.
but you brought up Marcus Smart. How quickly has one of the great players fallen?
Well, that's getting older. I mean, Middleton too. Middleton, people in Milwaukee are still upset about that, only because he was a great running buddy for Giannis, and he played really well when they won the title. But in the last
Yeah.
couple of years, he's been beat up, and his value has dropped. And I think sentimentally, the fans still love him in Milwaukee. And if he goes back there, they just played the Bucks. I don't know if the game was in Washington or Milwaukee though. Um, he'll be welcomed as a hero, as Marcus
Yeah.
Smart would be in Boston. But this does happen, and this is
Yeah.
why you wind up on a team that you realize, okay, but I'm going to be hopefully those guys are professional, and I'm sure they
Yeah.
will be, and just do the best they can, even in a difficult situation.
Hey, look, your son's getting experience, and I know because of you and your wife, he's going to end up with a major NBA team coaching, and he's going to be great. And the Lamont
Well,
name
thank you.
will live on forever.
Well, certainly, I appreciate that very much, Gary. Thank you very much. Yeah, we're proud of him, and we'll see what
Well,
happens.
if you, yeah,
In the
yeah,
future. I just don't know. By the way, I have no idea what his future is. So
I mean, like my mother sitting in the stands at Super Bowl III, going, and I'm in the sidelines. Which one does Mike play for now? 100 times she asked that question.
yeah,
My sister said, "Mom, the guys in blue and white. The other guys are the enemy."
yeah, they're
Oh,
the green and white guys, and
is
the
that
white and green
Joe's
guys.
team? I like
That's
Joe Namath.
a
Yeah.
lot of people did back then. It's
Oh yeah.
interesting that that the
But yet, did you know that he and Sonny Jurgensen are
my
the only
guy.
two Hall of Fame quarterbacks that are in there with losing records?
Uh I didn't, but I mean, Sonny played for some god
Bad
awful
teams.
teams in Washington, and then when George Allen showed up, he got hurt. And
Yeah.
Allen wanted to go to Billy Kilmer a lot more because he ran a more conservative game plan than Sonny did. And so, Sonny's one really great year. His best year, arguably, was when Vince Lombardi was the coach.
And
And
Sonny used to play head trips on players too. He was my
I'll give
brother.
you one. I mean, I know we're getting nostalgic here and not looking forward to very much, but I'll give you an all-time, and this is old, but it's an all-time sports what if.
Hmm.
Maybe the biggest in the history of the NFL. What if Vince Lombardi had lived a normal lifespan?
Ooh. Ooh.
Instead of dying, what was he, 59, 60,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
from cancer, what if he coaches, say, 10 years in Washington? He only coached 1 year, and he took a lousy team, and they had a winning record, their first in forever. Sonny
Yeah.
Jurgen, this is going to sound weird because we're spoiled by modern game now, but Sonny completed 60% of his passes that year, and that was mind-blowing
Yeah.
for the NFL.
Yeah.
And what if? Well, do we even have a Lombardi trophy? Who's the trophy named after? If Vince, hell, he would have probably won it. What
Yeah.
happens to the 70s? What happens to the Cowboys? What happens to the Steelers? What happens to other teams in the NFL in the 70s if
Yeah.
Washington ends up being a Lombardi like what he did with the Packers?
Yeah. Now I'm going to
Like,
bring up
what if?
something yeah, I'm going to bring up something now that happened to you a couple of weeks ago at an airport because I think it's the funniest thing in the
Oh,
world.
I'm dying to hear. I don't remember.
The TSA guy looked at your picture and said, "Gee,
Oh,
you
in
look a lot
Chicago.
younger here."
Yeah, I had done some bowling shows for Fox, and the next we're done, and then flying back home. I'm at O'Hare Airport, and I go to the TSA line. They didn't have Clear, and at where I was at. I use Clear whenever I can, but I didn't have it there, and I wasn't going to go to the wrong building to do it. So I said, "Okay, I've
Yeah.
got pre-check. This is fine." I get there, and of course, I have to show my driver's license, and the woman looks at it, and it wasn't one of those things where you slot it in and then the machine reads it.
Right.
And she looks at it, she looks at me, looks down again, and goes, "You were a lot younger in this picture." And that picture happens to be 10 years ago. And so the only thing and I'm thinking, okay, there's two ways to go with this. I could get really angry, but what is that going to do me?
Yeah.
Or I could ignore it, but I couldn't do that either. So I used the joke from the late Mitch Hedberg, which the joke was, and I didn't do the whole joke. The joke is somebody handed me a picture and said, "Here's a picture of you when you were younger."
Yeah.
Every picture of you is when you were younger,
Younger.
which is absolutely true. So
Yep.
that's what I said there. I said, "Every picture of you is when you were younger." And she kind
Your
of looked
picture's
again,
10 years
and
old
then
on your
on
driver's
my license,
license?
and I don't have to get it renewed again until next year. So
I
I'll
gotta
look
get it
more
renewed.
age appropriate, next
Yeah.
year. But
I've
yeah,
gotta
I
get
thought that was
yeah,
interesting, and she let me through,
yeah.
everything was fine after that. But it was
I
kind of an unusual. I don't think, in fact, I can say safely. I occasionally get stopped. Like I got stopped on that same trip for carrying. I had a small recording device about this big, a Tascam recorder. I don't know if you know the brand,
yeah.
and I had been using it 7 years ago to record lines for back then when ESPN had bowling for tape shows, and the producer's the same producer, and I had completely forgotten I had it, and I opened a drawer, and there it was. I went, "Oh, I got to give this guy this back one of these days." So I texted him a photo. He said, "Yeah, bring it along next time I see you." So this was that next time. So I put it in my carry-on luggage,
Yeah.
and they pull the luggage, and that never happens to me. And immediately they go in there, and go, "I know what it is." And they hold this thing up, and they go, "It looks like a taser." And I said, "Well, it's a recording device." And I pointed where you could plug in, the headset plugs, and there's little microphones on it. But I could see why, because there's two little clips that form that kind of taser look like the electricity would meet there to zap you.
Yeah.
And I said, "I promise." And they looked at it, okay, and they let me go. But it wasn't any good. This was nothing nasty, nothing mean. Nobody was a jerk or anything like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was a pretty crazy trip. I got uh, stopped twice at TSA because once because of a suspicious item. So couldn't have been happier to get rid of that thing when I got to Illinois, and so dump that off, because man, that was they look at you like, and you're thinking, "I don't have a bottle of water. Like, what is it?" And
Yeah.
you know I but I'm okay. Everything's fine.
When I lived in Chicago, I used to go through Midway because I O'Hara to me was like too much of a mishigash for me. It reminded me too much of Miami International Airport.
No, hair's better than Miami. Anything's better than Miami.
My TSA moment came, as you know, I was an entertainer in Las Vegas for a lot of years. And over a period of time, you get to meet, whether it's day shift, night shift, whatever shift at the airport, you get to meet the TSA people. They're generally at some point the same people, just working different shifts. And they get to know you, you get to know them, because I traveled a lot on corporate shows. Finally, one day I show up at the airport. It's a mid afternoon, like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and I'm getting ready to go catch a flight because I'm going to Kansas City to do a game show for Game Show America. And I get through the TSA, and the kid said he didn't see my carry on that I was strolling behind me. And he goes, "Hey, Gare, what are you doing at the airport?" I said, "I don't know. I was home. I had nothing to do. I thought I'd drop by and say hello." I tell you, it was one of the funniest moments of my life. And the supervisor said, "He's got his carry on right behind him, dummy. He's going
Yeah.
somewhere."
No, we just like to walk through security because we feel lonely. Yeah, I mean, I've been lucky with that. I've never really had anything that was untoward or a hassle. You occasionally get a pat thing, you get that random search thing or whatever. But
Yeah.
I mean, I know I have nothing to hide, so it's not a big deal. Fortunately, I think people have gotten used to it. I always not laugh. Sometimes it's annoying, but around the holidays when you get unprepared people who
Yeah.
aren't used to it, and I think by now everybody knows the rules. But I'm amazed that when you go by that bin where there's water bottles, that there's a lot of
Mhm.
them in there sometimes, depending on what day of what time of day you fly. And I'm like,
And
do you not
knives.
know? Do you not know that that's, I mean, or things that the one thing that blew me away is
Yeah.
I had bought a jar of like some kind of local peanut butter. No, it wasn't me. It was somebody else who had a peanut butter and they pulled it and they would not let it travel.
Really?
And I'm like, it was a jar and I love peanut butter.
Oh, I love
And I'm
peanut butter
thinking I
too.
was a crime. I'm like, I was actually mad for that guy. So I went up to one of the agents. I go, I'm sorry, I don't understand, but why didn't the peanut butter get through? It was an unopened virgin jar of peanut butter. And he goes, well, we can't see through it.
Huh.
Oh,
Huh.
I never thought of that.
Well,
I
yeah.
mean, so and listen, I would never want to live my life in the world of security. I think about that sometimes with people whose jobs are to root out bad people and bad things and look for things like, can you ever relax? Can you ever go out to dinner and not peek over your menu and think the guy over there in that corner looks suspicious and that person over there, I think I don't like the way that person's dressed. I mean, that's got to be a tough life.
It's weird. Hey, our hour has gone.
Damn, we were just getting
You
going.
Yeah, I know. Well, we're gonna talk after the show just for a couple of minutes, but,
No, do we have to, Dad?
no, we don't have to if you don't want to, son.
Is it important?
Not really. I can
Oh,
talk
good.
to you on the phone about it.
Oh, even
You
worse. All right, we'll
you
do it
get
here.
See what I put up with? All right.
Oops.
Thank you, Dave, very much. We'll be in touch next month. I don't think we're on next month, you and
Well,
I.
okay, fine.
Well,
That's all right. I'm traveling anyway, so
you're
I'll be
traveling, and then
crazy
the following
busy.
month we'll get back with you and me and
Okay.
Jeff and everybody. And I just want to thank everybody out there for joining us. Dave Lamont, Gary Allen, Main Street. Thank you so much. Have a good one. Until next time, take care of yourselves and everybody else around you.